What's up, everyone? It's Bryan Hornung from the Exact IT Solutions YouTube channel, and welcome to another video where we educate you about cybersecurity and let you know about all the threats that are out there, all the recent ransomware attacks that happened, and shed light on how you can play a part in maybe not being a victim of these cyber criminals. Because let's face it, cyber criminals are becoming way more successful, but it's not because they're getting better. It's because we just do a really crappy job at cybersecurity for the most part. And criminal hackers are having easy pickings right now on businesses and individuals to extort them and make money off them just because they don't think about this stuff and they don't care about this stuff until they get hit, until they get attacked. So my hope is that you watch this channel, you watch these videos, and you're educated and you learn something about cybersecurity, and maybe you do something to protect yourself or your business. So if you learn anything on my channel, if you're educated or entertained or whatever, if I've shown you a new perspective, help me grow this channel, help spread the word about cybersecurity, share us out, hit the like button, and let your friends and family know that there's good information here that you can listen to, use, and learn to protect yourself around cybersecurity. So today I'm going to jump into a bunch of topics. Number one, we had a bunch of ransomware attacks from a bunch of big individuals in the last week or so. We're going to cover those. We're going to get into the T-Mobile. We're going to get into Tokio Marine, and we're going to get into a very large IT company that got hit with ransomware. We're also going to talk about the Microsoft Exchange vulnerability that's been around for about 4 or 5 months, and that's still being exploited in the wild. The U.S. There was a U.S. Government big department that was breached recently. I'm going to talk about that. We're also going to get into the FBI news flash or the flash briefing about a particular ransomware group and why they decided to release that. We're also going to talk about new ways that ransomware groups are trying to attack you, your employees, and your businesses. And we're also going to talk about some of the things that are being done by businesses around ransomware attacks, like downplaying the event. And really, let's look at what certain companies are doing now, and then we can look at what happened 6 months after these companies were attacked, and maybe what they thought in the beginning really wasn't what really ended up being the truth once we were able to collect all the data and see what really happened. And I'm going to tell you that happens 100% of the time. It constantly happens where companies come out, they say, oh, no data was stolen, but yet 6 months later, they're announcing that data was stolen. This just happened with Colonial Pipeline. You would think that what data could be stolen from Colonial Pipeline? Well, employee data. Right, and that's very valuable, important data that can be used for things like opening up credit card accounts and getting loans and doing identity fraud and theft and things like that. So we're going to take a look at all those things and go through all of the issues that are currently happening in the world around cybersecurity and ransomware and all that good stuff. So remember, use the comments down below to ask any questions. Put your thoughts in around what you think is going on any of these topics. I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what your thoughts are. Have you experienced any of these things that I'm talking about? Can you shed light on, or can you, give us some insight on your experience around some of these things? So without further ado, we're going to jump into content for today. All right, so the first one I have up here today is Inc. Magazine. T-Mobile suffered a massive data breach, and its response is the number one thing no company should ever do. And it's really the thing that I'm seeing a lot too that I agree with. The communication is a pretty important part of taking care of your customers. Being upfront and letting people know. This was a big complaint in my own industry when the Kaseya attack happened, and everybody kind of like, hey, we wish Kaseya would give us more information about what's going on. Now, they did eventually come around and start giving out more information as time went on, but in the beginning, there was a lot of questions and a lot of stress about how they handled it. And the same thing's happening here with T-Mobile. T-Mobile suffered a data breach. If you applied for a T-Mobile account, you didn't even need to be a T-Mobile customer. Your data potentially has been exposed here. There's been millions of data records that have been exposed as a result of this, and a lot of it is personally identifiable information like social security numbers, home addresses, names, phone numbers, pretty much all the information that you would be required to submit on a credit card application is now in the hands of criminal hackers to be sold and shared on the dark web. This is going to lead to some identity fraud and theft. And T-Mobile is going to obviously pay for credit monitoring and things like that for a year. But they really kind of had a misstep with how they handled this initially out of the gate, basically saying like, oh, nobody's credit card information or payment information got stolen. So what if I can go and go apply for a credit card in your name because I have all the information I need to go apply for your credit. So if you potentially think you may have been a victim of this, you can call T-Mobile and you can find out if maybe your information was involved in this. But I would highly recommend that you, at a minimum, have alerts and monitor your credit for things like this. And then on top of that, you should really think about putting something like LifeLock or locking your credit file and only opening up when you know you need to apply for credit. Because if you don't monitor and have alerts on your credit profile, somebody's going to, could potentially apply for credit on your behalf. And the only other thing that you really have out there in your tool chest to stop this is locking your credit file. So do one of those two things. The best thing you can do is lock that credit file. It can seem inconvenient, but if you're going to apply for a new card, you're going to go for a new automobile, or you're going to, apply for a mortgage or a personal loan, you can unlock that file, and then when you're done that process, you can re-lock it. And that's really the best way that you want to handle something like this, especially if you've been a victim in this T-Mobile mess. All right, so the next one we're going to jump into is Tokio Marine. Tokio Marine is a massive cyber insurance company. They provide cyber insurance. And why this is a concern for me and why I wanted to bring it to your attention is if you're in a business and you've ever filed or applied for cyber insurance, you know that they ask you questions about your cybersecurity practices, or at least that's what most companies are doing today. And if you haven't gone through something like that with cyber insurance, either you've never applied for it or the company you work with just isn't there yet, but it's coming. I think most companies at this point are there. They're asking you for the things that you're doing. They might ask you like what antivirus or endpoint protection you're using, or what you're doing for backups and things like that. These are typical questions we see in cyber insurance policies. Now, Tokio Marine, if they were hacked and then ransomware is deployed, very good chance that we know that data was exfiltrated, right? And what if that data was these applications that these customers have submitted that basically, it doesn't details, but it gives a pretty good idea and summary of what that company is doing for cybersecurity. And if I'm a criminal hacker and I have that information, that is extremely valuable and gives me a huge leg up on whether or not I should attack and how I'm going to attack that company. And it really weakens the defenses of those companies when criminal hackers know exactly, how they're backing up, what vendor they're using, things like that, to make it, once they're in that network, they know exactly what to look for. They don't have to kind of fish around and see what's going on. So this is a big deal. Tokio Marine Insurance in Singapore, they're hit by ransomware attack, and they absolutely do provide cyber insurance to companies here in the US. So if you don't know if you're with Tokio Marine, please make sure that you check with your insurance agent to see who backs up your policy, because that's what these companies like Tokio Marine do. We have Microsoft Exchange servers still being hacked in the wild. And why this is important and pretty ridiculous is, look, if you're an IT administrator or you're a company and you have an Exchange server running in your environment, meaning in your office, you're not on hosted Exchange or Office 365, and you haven't put this patch on yet, you deserve to be hacked. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. 4 or 5 months in, Microsoft put out patches for versions of Exchange that are no longer supported, that really went out of their way to help the IT community deal with this threat. The FBI even got involved when this first came out and actually went into companies' servers and got rid of these things called web shells and other exploits that were put in place by these criminal hackers for use later on. The FBI, when they discovered that these web shells existed, they basically went in without authorization, got rid of them for the companies. And it was simply because companies were absolutely not doing anything after Microsoft released the notification that the vulnerability existed, and also released a subsequent patch to fix the problem. These issues on these servers are still present out in the wild. The Exchange servers are exposed to the internet. They haven't been patched, and now they're getting hit with LockFile ransomware. The criminal hackers have figured out how to use this vulnerability to now hit the server and deploy ransomware through this vulnerability. And they've worked on it. It took them 4 months to get from where they were, which is basically just putting in web shells and backdoors, to now they're at the point where they can actually deploy ransomware, and they're actively deploying ransomware. They're also deploying ransomware with the Print Nightmare vulnerability, which I don't have on this video, but I'm going to talk about it. The Print Nightmare vulnerability, which basically exploits the print spooler, which is the service inside of Windows that allows your computer to print. Hackers are able to deploy ransomware because they can get elevated privileges using a vulnerability within this print spooler service. And when they are able to do that, they're able to get higher level access on the machine, which allows them to then deploy ransomware. And we are currently seeing ransomware being deployed presently with the Print Nightmare vulnerability. So the Print Nightmare vulnerability has been patched unsuccessfully by Microsoft, and to this point, as of August 25th, 2021, there is still not 100% fix. They keep pushing out these patches, but apparently when they push them out, it's not fixing all the systems that are out there, or it's not fixing specific vulnerabilities across the board. So Microsoft is working on that fix. It's taking really a ridiculous amount of time, Microsoft, to get this fixed. You really need to step up your game on this and do a better job. And Microsoft right now is still recommending that if you don't need to print from a specific computer, that you disable the service and you do not allow it to run. And that is how you're going to prevent a hacker from spreading ransomware throughout your network, because you're going to disable the service and then they can't use it once it is disabled. Moving right along, the U.S. State Department was hacked and didn't make a lot of news. The U.S. State Department was hacked, and they were a victim of a cyber attack. But the interesting thing is, and it happened, the breach was discovered, it was believed to have happened a couple weeks ago, it said. But the interesting thing here is, earlier this month, a Senate Homeland Security Committee report rated the State Department's overall cybersecurity a D, one of the lowest possible ratings. The report states that the State Department was ineffective in 4 or 5 function areas, including a level 1 ad hoc maturity rating for detection capabilities. So what that means is, number one, they don't have a regular or a process or plan in place for finding vulnerabilities within their network and within their environment. They're kind of doing it as needed, ad hoc, right? That's what it means. When we think we need to look at something, that's when we're looking. We're not looking all the time. We're not reviewing things all the time like you should, especially at the State Department and the kind of resources that they have available to them. Now, it's interesting. I had a conversation not too long ago with somebody who, let's say they're in the financial services industry in the Washington, D.C. area. And their clients are a lot of the people that work at the State Department and other government entities. And they told me that they were very confident that they had their cybersecurity taken care of because they worked with these people and they were tied in with these people. And here you go, you have the State Department that basically has the shittiest cybersecurity that you could possibly have on the planet. And I see this all the time in businesses, big and small. I had a conversation with somebody in a Fortune 50 company in the last week, and they told me that they have the best cybersecurity on the planet. And you know what's funny? They think this stuff, and we go in and we do an assessment, and I find things 100% of the time. We find things that can be hacked, can be vulnerable, accounts that are left out there that should probably be turned off, disabled, what have you. There is no company out there that has their stuff so tight that a criminal hacker, if they got in, couldn't find something to exploit. If you are, you're rare. Most companies that are out there, most government organizations that I've come across, that my colleagues have come across, have these problems. And it's really frustrating for guys like us when we actually know what's really going on out there to hear somebody who's in a C-suite, who thinks they know, but they really don't, and says to you, we're good because we're this big company. That's not the case. The government gets hacked all the time. They have horrible cybersecurity over at the State Department, and I guarantee you most Americans would think that the State Department has the best cybersecurity in the damn country, and they don't. So, FBI newsflash, I just wanted to bring this up to people's attention. They're bringing out this OnePercent group. It's a new ransomware group. Interestingly enough, that we saw DarkSide and Revel kind of go away after their major attacks on Colonial and Kaseya. And now we have this 1% group that's out there. I kind of am interested in why they call themselves the 1% group. There could be a lot of reasons for that. We're going to probably try to do some research to figure out what's behind the name. Are they targeting 1%ers, or are they saying that they're the elite 1% hacker ransomware people who are going to basically, collect the most money, kind of like, the rest of the world views, or at least Americans view the 1% of the most wealthy people in this country. I don't know what's behind it, but it's an interesting name. And they like to use Cobalt Strike, and Cobalt Strike is a command and control. It's legitimate software that company or that hackers like to use to exploit companies. Once they can get into the network, they like to make sure that they can get some kind of Cobalt Strike beacon in place so they can maintain access and deploy more things to the network and basically ransomware. So it goes on. The article just points out that 1% group actors compromise victims through phishing email, which is the number one most common way that companies and individuals can get ransomware, in which an attachment is opened by the user. The attachment's macros, which is why you should always have your macros disabled by default in your Office programs, infect the system with Iced ID banking Trojan. The Iced ID downloads additional software to include Cobalt Strike. Cobalt Strike moves laterally in the network, primarily with PowerShell remoting. There are ways you can disable PowerShell without allowing it to be re-enabled through Cobalt Strike. A lot of people tell me, if you disable PowerShell, they can just re-enable it. Well, no, not if you don't give them the right access to do so. They would have to have certain higher levels of access, which they shouldn't have throughout the whole network. They might be able to get it on one system and get Cobalt Strike installed, but if you're doing things properly, they shouldn't be able to move laterally, like this article says, very easily. And you should be preventing that, and you should also be detecting for those kind of movements in your network, and that's how you prevent this kind of stuff from happening. And the ransomware groups, you know what? They're just emailing your employees directly. Screw this looking for advanced persistent threat groups to work with and find guys that know how to break in the networks really well and pair up with them to deploy a ransomware. Let's just email the damn employees and see if there's somebody pissed off enough at their employer to where they'll help us and deploy ransomware. So this was found on the dark web. And it says, if you work in an office, you can install ransomware on your company's Windows server. Once the company pays us big cash in Bitcoins, you'll get 40%. Can you access your company's Windows server? This is a bad one. I've actually seen other ones where they're just basically like, hey, we'll send you an email, just run it on your systems. Now, in a lot of cases, when we go in and we do risk assessments on companies, we see computers with regular users with admin rights. They can install whatever they want. Nothing stops them. Nothing checks it. And, ransomware groups are going to look for, people who are like, hey, can you install this on your computer? Think about it. 40% of $1 million, that's a nice chunk of change. Are you paying your employees that much? Where, if they don't like your company, they don't really like what they work, and they don't make a lot of money, and they see this as like, hey, I can make a year's salary just by clicking on this link and running this tool. These guys are going to change their tactics. They're going to change their ways, and we're going to see a lot more of this kind of vector for being a way for ransomware to get in the network. And you could probably sit here and say, well, Brian, you're nuts. That's never going to be a thing. Yes, it will be. Watch. Ransomware. These four emerging gangs compose the next major cybersecurity threat. And this just goes in to talk about the LockBit 2.0, which is one of the new ones. And that's actually what's being deployed around the Microsoft Exchange as well. LockBit has endangered 52 organizations around the world since June. And we're only in August. So, people ask me all the time, how many companies are really getting hit with ransomware? Hundreds and hundreds a day. And, if you don't think that your company is going to get hit one day, you're severely mistaken. If you're not doing anything, you're more than likely going to get hit. If you're working with a cybersecurity professional or company, you're reducing your chances of the attack A happening and B being successful. But when you do nothing, it's so easy for these guys to be successful. It's ridiculous. And as you can see, this is one group that was able to infiltrate 52 organizations since June, and it's August. So in 2 months, 25 a day, that's on average about one per every business day that they're hitting these companies. It's insane how much one group, and there's hundreds and hundreds of ransomware groups. This is one group that's hitting basically one company every single day. There's companies out there that aren't getting one new client every day. So you see how lucrative something like this can be for IT companies or a disgruntled IT person maybe who can't grow his company or get a job or get clients. You can get clients with ransomware and doing criminal activity. And from my research and everything that I'm seeing, these companies are not, or these criminal hackers are not getting caught at all. It's very rare when you hear somebody being brought to justice for ransomware, which is making this more and more and more attractive for anybody who has a criminal type mindset. So we're going to jump into this one. Accenture, Jesus, downplaying the LockBit ransomware. Just talked about LockBit. Accenture, one of the largest IT companies in the world, got hit with ransomware. And this is what I'm talking about, folks. It doesn't matter who you are. Kaseya's been hit. Accenture's been hit. Cognizant was another big IT company that got hit. I think it was at least in the last 12 months. I don't remember exactly when it was. It doesn't matter how big the IT company is. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter if you're Fortune 50. It doesn't matter if you think you work with the best and the brightest in the government, which is all things that I've heard from CEOs when I'm out there giving talks and people come up to me and they want to ask me questions, or I meet somebody and I say, hey, we do cybersecurity, and they're like, oh, well, we work with the best of the best. We don't want to work with you. At the end of the day, I know what a lot of IT companies are doing for cybersecurity, and a lot of them are woefully unprepared for what's out there. They're not certified. They don't understand how to do a framework. They don't understand how to implement a framework. They just throw a couple tools on your system and they say that they're doing cybersecurity. And that is not cybersecurity. There's no one tool. There's no two tools. There's no three tools that you're going to be able to put on your systems and say, we're good because we have this, we have that, and we have that. Or more than likely, actually, the conversation is we put something on our system and we go, oh, we have that, so we're good. And it's one tool. It's one thing. I literally had somebody tell me the Ignite, which is a cloud-based file platform, cloud-based file storage platform and sharing platform. they told me that they're good with their cybersecurity because they have Ignite. And I said, I asked questions, and when I finally got down to it, it's what the salesperson told him. The salesperson at Ignite told him that you don't need anything else but our platform. You're good from things like ransomware and cyber attacks because you're with Ignite. Well, number one, I'll tell you one thing. That's not true. Number two, I know security researchers that can exploit Ignite. And there are certain things within the Ignite platform that can be exploited. And that hasn't been released to the wild yet. Not many people know about it. But it's something that's out there, and it's something that can be exploited. And there's a lot of other technologies like Datto, like Meraki, like very popular things that can be exploited, that people think, these are tools or devices that we can put in our network or put in our environment, and we're good, we're protected. And you're not. And it's not that these are bad products, it's just that they have these vulnerabilities in them that haven't been discovered yet, or they haven't been released out in the wild yet. Security researchers might know about them because they've discovered them, and it's not out. You guys don't know about them yet because they haven't been disclosed, and they're trying to work with the vendor to report them responsibly and get them fixed before a bad actor is able to figure out what they've figured out. So this is real stuff, folks. This is what's going on out there, and this is what you need to be aware of. Now, the annoying thing to me about Accenture is that they're downplaying this, that they're saying that this wasn't a big deal. I've never met a ransomware attack that wasn't a big deal. Look at Cognizant. Accenture, you need to take a playbook out of Cognizant and look at what Cognizant is going through right now. The attrition that they have just because they were attacked with ransomware, you're going to experience the same thing. And it annoys me that they're downplaying this like it wasn't a big deal. It's going to be a big deal. Maybe certain computers, maybe more sensitive computers didn't get hit in this situation. But I'm going to tell you this. They're going to have a problem when customers look at them and go, oh, our IT company got hacked? We're going to go find somebody else when our contract's up. And people are going to leave over time, and they're not going to renew simply because they were your client when you got a ransomware attack. And when somebody goes and does cybersecurity research and they're looking for companies, I saw a list come out today from MSSP Alert, which I'm a big fan of, and Accenture was at the top of the list as one of they got a new certification that AWS came out with, and Accenture was at the top of the list on this MSSP Alert article I saw, and it was saying that they were one of the companies that have this AWS security certification. And I kind of chuckled because I'm like, Jesus, Joe over at MSSP Alert literally published this article, or somebody on his team might have, and I'm going, you literally are going to put Accenture on the top of this list when they're dealing with a ransomware attack. I mean, I don't know who would do business with Accenture when they've been attacked by ransomware. If you literally sign a contract with Accenture after they've been hit with a ransomware attack, you get what you deserve. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So, and this is what I'm talking about. Who pays a ransom for New Jersey records taken by hackers? Because there's been a ton of New Jersey municipalities that have been hit by ransomware. And we see it. We saw it in Asbury Park. We saw it in Wildwood Crest, where the residents had to agree to pay the ransom. And Roselle, they paid at least $150,000 for lawyers and internet technology company to respond to a 2019 ransomware attack. Accenture downplayed the attack, but they're not being honest. They had to dedicate time, money, and resources and put effort into recovering from this ransomware attack. It is going to cost them something. Yeah, it might not put their company under, but it's going to put a dent in their revenue, in their profit, and they're going to have to deal with this for a very, very long time because of the reputational damage. And that's the point of why I'm showing this. Mercer County, New Jersey, hackers stole $666,000 in an international cybercrime scheme in which they broke into government email and tricked an employee into sending funds by posing as a vendor. And this happens all the time. And this is what I want to point this stuff out. Like, somebody pays for this, right? So Accenture, your clients are going to pay for your ransomware attack because you're going to have to get the money from somewhere to dedicate to that response that you paid, and your clients are going to have to pay for that. That's all overhead. You don't generate any revenue from the attack that happened on your company, and now you're going to need to spend money on probably outside people plus inside people. And where are you going to get that money? You have to get it from the revenue that you charge from your clients. So either you're taking less profit, or you're going to raise prices, or or charge your customers more so you can get through this stuff. It's exactly what these governments had to do for these New Jersey taxpayers. They had to raise taxes in order to pay for these events. And guess what? Yes, it is all preventable. That's what I talk about on this channel all the time. All of this is preventable. It's just that people don't take this seriously enough. They don't do the things that need to be done in order to make it hard for them to get in and make it hard for them to move laterally and deploy ransomware. But it is 100% preventable. It's preventable before they get in. Once they're in, it's not preventable. Paying the ransom is not preventable. But the hacker getting in is 100% preventable, and you can prevent them from getting in, and you can detect whether they're there, and you can do things to make sure. All of these attacks are happening because companies aren't doing anything. They're barely doing anything. They're doing one or two pieces of the puzzle, and there's a hell of a lot more pieces than one or two pieces. So moving right along, and this is the last topic for the day. We're going to wrap it up. Nevada hospital ransomware attack could affect data of 1.3 million patients. An Ohio-based law firm is investigating claims on behalf of the breach victims. So the University Medical Center in Southern Nevada has reported that ransomware attack earlier this summer affected the data of 1.3 million people. Now, why it matters. Analysts point to Revil. Revil's gone. A Russian-linked ransomware group as the culprit. The group has reportedly extorted upwards of 12 million from victims in 2021. It's a hell of a lot more than 12 million. But in mid-July, just after the UMC incident, it appeared to vanish from the internet. UMC says it has no evidence to date that the cybercriminals access any clinical systems, including those connected to electronic health records. However, the compromised files did contain PHI, protected health information, which is a HIPAA violation, and personally identifiable information, potentially including demographic information, name, address, date of birth, social security number, clinical information, history, diagnostic and test results, and financial information, your insurance number. Just after the attack, Revil posted images of driver's licenses, passports, and social security cards of around a half a dozen alleged victims on its website, according to local outlets. But here's the problem. Revil's gone. Revil attacked Kaseya, and now they're gone. So I don't know where this leaves UMC, but it's interesting. This is coming out now. They were attacked in July, right around the same time, actually probably right after Kaseya, because Kaseya happened, as I predicted, on July 4th. And this happened in mid-July, so this happened right after. So probably within the same week of hitting Kaseya, they decided to hit this hospital, and they stole information. They started posting stuff on their blog, but the happy blog is now gone. So I don't know where this is going to end up, and we will stay on top of this to see where it goes. But it's not good, and you can see none of these attacks are good. And at the end of the day, folks, we got to really start doing a better job at cybersecurity. There are professionals out here who can help you. My company is one of them. You can reach out to us. We can help you start putting together a framework, letting you understand where your risk is, and helping you do things like reduce that risk in your business. Please don't look at IT anymore as the people you call when things break. Yes, most IT companies are very good at that these days. We've been doing IT for 17 years, and we obviously can handle the help desk portion of the service that we offer. But we're in a day and age where you need a security professional consulting with you or your business to make sure that your business is protected. And you need to really understand as a CEO whether or not your business is vulnerable to an attack. And I'm going to sit here and tell you it is, unless you're doing something about it. So I implore you to work with somebody, I don't care who it is, on your cybersecurity, to take it seriously, to make it something that you put effort into as your CEO. Don't bury your head in the sand. There's a little thing out there called gross negligence, where CEOs are being held personally responsible for these types of attacks in the event that they have cyber insurance, or in the event that things are being impacted so much that you're being criminally charged for not taking care of what you're supposed to be taking care of. So if you have any questions, let me know. Drop some comments below. Have you been affected by any of this stuff? I want to hear from you guys. What are you thinking about this stuff? What do you think about the security at your company that you work at? We want to hear about it. Let us know, and we'll give you some feedback in the comments as well. So thanks for watching. Remember to share us out and like our stuff. Take care, everyone.